Welcome to this video on how to enable remote work and deploy virtual solutions for client services in Social Solutions Apricot software. Thank you for joining. My name is Jeff Hagwood. I'm an Apricot software consultant at Sidekick Solutions. Sidekick Solutions is a certified Apricot implementation partner. We help new and existing Apricot users make the most of the platform. And we provide services for implementation, reporting, integrations, data migration, and system administration. In this video, we're going to cover why Apricot is a great solution for remote work, talk about some of the common challenges to client engagement in a virtual setting, and then demo some Apricot features that address the challenges of remote work. All right, let's dive in. The transition from in-person to virtual service delivery depends on technology solutions, software. And that software needs to enable the operations for data collection, intake, and client engagement. The purpose of this video is to support your organization or your agency's efforts to deliver virtual solutions for client engagement. Now, this presentation won't cover the full stack of technology you may need to work remotely. Additional tools may include video conferencing, company-hosted text messaging services, and potentially document e-signature services. With that said, Apricot does cover a wide range of use cases to address remote work and virtual client services. Before we dive into those use cases, why is Apricot such a strong platform in this context? First, Apricot allows you to rapidly deploy new solutions so you can start collecting data, reporting, and learning right away. Once those solutions are in place, Apricot can scale up from an initial pilot to more users, more data, and deeper analytics. Apricot is cloud-based. That enables web-based data collection, collaboration, and reporting. And as a cloud-based product, that means it's natively secure. Apricot's also automation ready, meaning it can be configured to support efficient data collection, data processing, and workflows to take time and effort off your staff and your team's plate. Lastly, Apricot comes out of the box with a full suite of customizable reporting tools and analytics solutions. You don't need to purchase add-ons or separate software to explore the insights of your data. Now, to meet the needs of virtual deployment, we need a solution that can help us address the onboarding of staff quickly with appropriate system access and restrictions. We need to enable staff data entry to not collect paper documentation outside the office. We need to address potentially broad community-based data collection efforts at scale, like surveys or web solutions. We need the ability to complete intake efficiently when participants aren't available in person. We also need a solution that can help us receive client documentation when clients can't print or scan documents. Now, out of the box, both Apricot 360 and Apricot Core give us a range of solutions to support remote work and virtual client engagement, specifically secure web forms, intake web forms, the Connect client portal, signature and attachment fields, and direct messaging via email and text message. Before we demo those features in Apricot, let's talk through how Apricot solutions can address each of the challenge areas we presented. First, user onboarding. How do we onboard new users quickly with appropriate permissions and system access that's not going to constrain our users' ability to deliver services virtually? The last thing we want to do is create a hurdle to engaging with clients. Apricot's going to help us address this with group-level security and permissions that allow us to compartmentalize the software so that users can only see what's relevant to them. We can assign administrator roles for users to self-develop solutions for rapid deployment. And we may explore guest user access to scale up limited use access for mentors, volunteers, and other contractors who would otherwise be deploying services in an office-based setting. The key point here is to balance Apricot between the ability to scale user access quickly while also ensuring proper permissions and security. In addition, when you move more capabilities into a virtual setting, that generally means that users will likely need more access to Apricot functionality globally. Here's a way we can think about permissions as you scale up the platform. Sites and programs maintain record-level security by tightening the security permissions around who accesses what. For example, if you have two programs, program A and B, operating in the same license, you may only want program A to see program A's clients. Subsequently, you may only want program B to see program B's clients. Program record level access governs that restriction, so that each program only sees the data that's relevant to them. If you are using sites and program level restrictions to restrict record level access, you may need to use the referrals feature to transition client data from program to program in a virtual setting. If a client is inaccessible to program B because it's assigned to program A, the Apricot referrals feature can be used for users to submit a referral to program B, approved, and included in program B's client dataset. Additionally, role-based permissions ensure that team members are working on only those items relevant to them. An example of this would be staff that are only able to complete treatment plans versus staff that are only able to complete resource and referral requests. Those two separations of duties may be segmented by permissions so that the users who access resource and referral are not completing service and treatment plans, and vice versa. Additionally, as you move into a virtual setting, you may want to consider admin roles for your end user pool. Admin roles provide users more access to reporting or form design, allowing users to design reports and build forms in a self-serve access permission set. This is a way that you can democratize system access instead of maintaining those functionalities only with administrators. The second scenario is, how do we support standard operating procedures and data collection when staff work remotely? We don't want to collect paper outside of the physical office. As you move services virtually and remotely, your team's relationship with Apricot will also evolve. As a supervisor, manager, or administrator, you may need to consider building more data collection systems in Apricot that reduce off-system paperwork. You may also need to develop systems that allow users to make requests to you virtually. Additionally, you may want to surface more information for users in dashboards and reports to help them do more work on their own rather than in group settings. As users rely more on technology when working remotely, this is a good thing. There may be a shift from your team's normal day-to-day work experience with Apricot. You may have to answer questions like, do we need to capture data that enables supervision? Or if there's a process that's normally done off-page or outside of Apricot, should we be doing that in our Apricot platform for more visibility? You may also need to answer the question, do we have adequate systems in place for managing and addressing user feedback? Additionally, does our team have the appropriate actionable dashboards and reports that surface information to help them manage their work? Also, do we have enough reporting in place to ensure staff can work effectively with independent situations where they can't reference a physical case file? The third scenario and challenge in deploying virtual solutions is how we address the needs for broad, community-based data collection that responds to either emerging events or an ongoing need. We need solutions that are easy to deploy and easy to scale, especially as we look broadly at a community, a county, or potentially a broader region. The solution might be to look at intake web forms or secure web forms in Apricot to collect either anonymous or identified data from external parties. We'll also need solutions in Apricot for native reporting to conduct real-time analysis on those incoming data sets. And we might also consider using the import tool for an ad hoc or quasi data warehousing feature where we can store data in Apricot using external data sets and correlate that information against other data that we store in our Apricot database. This is particularly relevant if we're using Apricot 360 and the advanced Apricot results reporting module. The fourth scenario and challenge that we need to overcome in a virtual setting is how to efficiently complete a participant intake when the intake session isn't in person. Instead, that session might be done virtually via video conference or a phone call. In Apricot, there will always be an option for your staff team to enter the data manually in the platform, but we can streamline this process using Apricot web forms and the Client Connect portal. The solution might be to deploy a web form for profile or intake level data. We could even parse out multiple intake forms per program using program-specific intake information and each client using a separate form for the program that they're enrolling in. We could also take a look at using the Connect portal for a multi-step intake that captures not only client information like demographics and contact info, but also an initial assessment, intake information, screenings, and evaluations. Finally, the fifth scenario and challenge that we have to overcome in a virtual setting are consents and signatures. How are we going to receive consents and signatures as part of our intake or potentially during services when clients can't print or scan a document? There are many solutions we might take a look at. We could use a secure web form or a consent on the intake workflow. We could use the Connect portal to send out consents and signatures as a separate Tier 2 record for the Client Connect portal's Tier 1 profile. We could also use direct messaging, email, or text messages to allow users to complete consents in a mobile format on a phone or tablet. Additionally, if you're an existing Apricot user and you have an existing Apricot build, if you're not using Connect or web forms to gather consents, but instead have a procedure that's normally done in the Apricot platform itself by a staff member, you could use a bolt-on solution using a secure web form or a Tier 2 virtual interactions log to log those consents to a client's document folder. Now, all of these scenarios are conceptual, and I wanted to go through them to show you the totality of what Apricot can do. But I also, during this video, want to show you some practical demonstrations of Apricot software and how you can put these solutions into practice. So at this point, let's transition to some demos. The first demonstration I'd like to take a look at is community-based data collection, or data collection from users or clients, constituents, other individuals in the community that don't have a login in Apricot. Any form in Apricot, any Tier 1 form, can be turned into a secure web form. A secure web form is a form that's deployable online via a secure link that allows a visitor to submit an entry into your Apricot database. In this case, I have a COVID-19 Employment Community Impact Assessment. This is a best practice form that was deployed by Social Solutions in the Apricot template library. Like any form in Apricot, you can enter a form simply by creating a new record and typing in that form entry screen. However, in this case, this form has been deployed as a web form. Fields and data elements can be added to a form. You can customize these forms to whatever you'd like. And in this case, I've actually added a piece of form logic to this form, and I'd like to show you how that works in a secure web form setting. Once I have a form built via the form designer, I can deploy a secure web form from the External Access Portal Secure Web Forms feature. Select the form you want to deploy as a web form, the user that represents the access level associated with this form, and the program that's related to it. And this form will generate a secure link that you can use to enter information against this form. If I use that link to navigate to this form, I see that this form is deployed very similar to how Apricot is laid out in the logged in experience. The advantage of secure web forms as opposed to some other solutions is that you can enable form logic as if you were in Apricot itself. So for example, there's a form logic element where if I select yes, it'll ask me to please describe my yes answer. The dynamic nature of this form is only available in the Secure Web Forms feature set, but it does provide a very scalable solution and an ability to govern some data quality as the data is coming into your platform. Additionally, secure web forms can either be identified or anonymous. In this case, I have an identified web form where the individual is required to enter a name. Requirements are set up automatically. As I mentioned, there's form logic that's required. And when a user submits this form, they're logged out of the secure session, and that record is logged in your Apricot database. You can see that record is logged here. As a user in Apricot, I can navigate to that record. I can review it, I can amend it, or I can add new records simultaneously as records are being submitted through the secure web form. Secure web forms automate data entry, but they also automate reporting. So as straightforward as it was to deploy a web form for my data collection solution or my scenario, I can also develop real-time reporting using Apricot's native report builder. In this case, I have a report that per question of my assessment is generating a chart and an evaluation of that question's results over all of my data set. This report contains two global values. So as I entered a date range, my report will populate with charts, metrics. I can even add percentages and other evaluations to this report. And these reports are updated in real time. As submissions are collected through my secure web form, they will populate this report. Another way that we might automate data entry for our staff and increase client engagement with our services is to deploy an intake workflow using intake web forms and the Connect client portal. This solution will include a number of potential options for both signatures, data collection, automation workflows, and essentially covering the entire pathway for a client to both inquire and be enrolled in our services. Again, all of this enabled as a virtual tool. So let me walk through the workflow that a user might go through, as well as some of the key points in designing the solution. So my Apricot system is designed, let me go to the back end here, with a client profile tier 1 here, as well as an intake paperwork tier 2. Now the intake paperwork, let's assume we take this every year or every time we enter the program, and the intake paperwork form is a consent form. So what we want the ability to do is we want the ability to create a client profile and append that client consent to the client's Tier 2 document folder. Once we've gone through that intake workflow, we then want to take a COVID-19 impact assessment, which again is a Social Solutions best practice template deployed in the template library. We'd like to send that assessment to a user to complete on their mobile device. Let's walk through this process end to end. The first step is to send the user to a particular link, a web link, for the intake web form related to both the client profile and the intake paperwork record, which you can see down here. So I'm going to enter this record. Just going to enter the required information to demonstrate this solution. This form is also going to require Sally to sign. Upon submission, this user will have the ability to see records come into the platform. So if I go to my client profile, I can see my Sally Fake record is sitting right there. In addition, I can go to the document folder of this individual and I can see that their intake paperwork has been submitted as a record to their Tier 2 document folder. Again, in total, what we're trying to do is minimize the amount of data entry time that staff spend completing intake while also engaging with constituents or clients or whomever in a virtual setting. Now from here, we need Sally to enter some additional information to her profile. And the best way to accomplish that is to use the Client Connect portal. Using the Client Connect portal as an administrator, I can go to the back end and I can look at my participants and enroll Sally in the Connect portal. By enrolling Sally in the Connect portal, she's prompted to create a login in Apricot. The email that she receives looks something like this. And by clicking on this link, she can navigate through a Connect workflow to create a password, and log into the portal. From here, Sally can complete the COVID-19 impact assessment or complete any other forms that we've allowed Sally to complete, which might help us engage with her in a virtual setting. Now, instead of having Sally fill out this form from this screen, what I'd like to do is I'd like to send Sally a direct message via email so that she can complete this record on a mobile device. I'm going to navigate back to Apricot, and create a direct message. Please complete impact assessment. And I'm going to walk through this wizard. I'm going to select Sally. Please complete the attached form. I'm going to select my assessment. And send this message. This message comes to Sally looking something like this, where when she clicks on this link, she's taken to a form that's unique to her profile. You'll see that there's a token ID up here, and that helps this record append to her document folder. Navigating back to Sally's folder, we can now see that there are two records associated with her profile: the intake paperwork, as well as the impact assessment that we submitted via Connect. Again, in thinking about the workflow from end to end using Apricot, what we're able to do is not only allow users to complete intake into our system, but then complete intake via additional resources and data entry, taking some of that burden off of your staff and putting it on the client in this virtual setting. That helps you collect information. Sally can also engage with you in a virtual setting via the Connect portal. All in all, this is a very positive experience for users, especially if we're working in a video conference or a phone setting. The solutions we've talked through so far assume that you're configuring something new. So what do we do if we have an Apricot platform where baked into the architecture of our Apricot design is an intake flow that's normally managed and operated by staff? How can we, in a virtual setting, receive consents and engage with participants virtually while still managing a high-touch engagement where staff are doing the majority of data entry? I'm going to show you one way to do that, and we're calling this more of a bolt-on scenario, meaning you're taking an existing Apricot solution and you're bolting on a feature rather than designing something from scratch. And we're actually going to use a secure web form to do this. You'll notice that I have in my Apricot a tier 1 form called Intake Paperwork Secure Web Form, and I've built this to collect information from individuals in a virtual session. So let's assume that my staff person, or me as a case manager, that I am actually conducting the intake. So I'm going to enter this individual into our system. And this is before the consents actually occur. And then I'm going to send this individual a consent secure web form that looks something like this. That individual, potentially on a virtual session, might fill this out. Various information for this individual to read and sign. The advantage of using a secure web form in this scenario is that we can put large blocks of text embedded into the form for this user to read and explore. Upon submission, this form is going to write to my database. And I can actually develop a queue of intake paperwork that has yet to be processed. So if I navigate to my intake paperwork log, I can see my submission from fake Frank, and we can actually link this to his profile. I could also create a report to do this, where I could actually queue up all of the submitted intake paperwork records that have yet to be linked to a client profile. I can navigate to that record, and using form logic, I could expand a for administrator use only solution, where I could search for Frank, link this intake paperwork to Frank's profile, again, more of a bolt-on solution. And now when I'm working with Frank, I can actually see on his client profile the intake paperwork, and I've made a functional link where I can navigate between these two solutions, these two forms. That concludes what I wanted to cover for this video. The big takeaways are that Apricot can support community mobilization and data collection using secure web forms and surveys. We can complete and automate staff data entry time with virtual intake and building an electronic record in a virtual setting. We can also enable staff in a remote setting to explore and use more of the Apricot feature set to ensure that they can continue their work separate from the office setting. If you'd like to explore more best practices for Apricot, you can visit our website at sidekicksolutionsllc.com/apricot. If you like our approach and our method to Apricot, and you'd like to look and explore working with us, you can send us an email at info@sidekicksolutionsllc.com. Our door is always open. Thank you very much for watching.